Everybody, welcome back to the Money Is Show. And today we have a special guest, someone that I had a great jam out session with in my office that I connected with on a really cool level that I want to bring to you guys now to try to help you in your entrepreneurial life. His name is Ray Higdon. He flew all the way from sunny Naples, Florida, one of the coolest parts of all of Florida. He's the CEO and founder of the Higdon Group, and it helps entrepreneurs just like you, just like me, on how to find that consistency throughout our lives as an entrepreneur. If you're anything like me as an entrepreneur, especially when I got started, man, I was up, I was down, I was winning, I was losing, I was winning, I was losing. How do you find that theme of consistency to help you all through the entrepreneur life, which you'll find will actually then roll over also into your family life, your personal life, your relationship with your partner, your children, your parents, and so forth. Ray's an expert at helping people do that. He's the author of the book called Time, Money, and Freedom, which are the three things that we love on the show, on the Money Is Show. He's also spoken on some of the biggest stages in the world with Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk, Bob Proctor, Russell Brunson, and the list goes on. So today's special guest for you guys that are entrepreneurs out there in the world is Ray Higdon. You guys help me welcome Ray Higdon. Ray, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Unique. I love, we're it seems like at a very similar or commonplace, similar place in lives as the journey of entrepreneurship and stuff happens. And it's actually a road that I never saw coming. Like as an entrepreneur, this is not what I was thinking when I thought entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
And you talk a lot about consistency, right? And you know, if you think about that word in general, anything in sports, right? Playing sports, it's about consistency. It's not about having always the game-winning shot. It's about being consistent throughout the whole game, which will lead into the game-winning shot normally.
Right.
Anything in life is about consistency, and you want to grow, you want to scale, whether it be personally or as an entrepreneur. That word is a word that eludes a lot of entrepreneurs, though.
It does.
Of consistency, man. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially as I think about myself getting started on the journey, they're just trying to find the path. They're trying to find the way. They're trying to, you know, in their world where they're at is they're forging a new path. Maybe in their family, they're the first generation to go out there to do something like this, and their friends are telling them that they're crazy and they're nuts and so forth, right? I know you've experienced that. And they're just driving and pushing, and then it's like, but then how do you find consistency, right? So I want you to talk about how you help entrepreneurs with consistency, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into it, but give us maybe a high-level viewpoint of it right now.
Yeah, so I break it into two different categories when it comes to consistency.
Okay.
So there's a small percentage of people who they're consistent. They rock and roll. They're workaholics. They work all the time. Like looking for consistency is a weird thing, and that very, very often is because that's actually their coping mechanism for not wanting to be around themselves more. Because that was mine.
Yeah.
Right. And
that may be a lot of entrepreneurs. They love those 18-hour days.
Hustle, grind, go. And for me, that was me. I was workaholic, working all the time, barely saw my kids, work. And what I didn't realize when I was in that mode is that I was trying to fill a hole that can't be filled that way. And so that hole was my self-worth. I didn't like being around myself. But if I'm working, if I'm doing other things, then it keeps my mind off of things, and I'm not relaxing enough to really sit with myself, which I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Now that's a smaller percentage of the population, and I've coached a lot of people, that have that, because I had that. The rest of the population, they focus, their struggle with consistency is not because they're lazy. They fall off, they'll have maybe a success, and then they'll fall off for 2 months, and then they'll do this. And then same with losing weight, same with money, same with really anything. And they're drawing the wrong conclusion to success based on a past observation.
Okay.
And so this is not a conscious decision. When an entrepreneur is not consistent, that is not a conscious decision. They want to do the work, but they just can't find themselves doing it. And sometimes this will be masked. It'll be camouflaged because the subconscious doesn't want you to figure this out. So it'll camouflage itself in overthinking, in procrastination, in perfectionism, in all these different layers. But at the end of the day, there is no amount of self-development that you can pour upon this program, and all of a sudden, boom, now you're consistent. So you can read all the routine books and daily routine and DMOs and all that different stuff. It's not going to help until you start become aware of that actual program. Mm-hmm. And so that's a little deep, it's probably better to give some examples. So
well, let me ask you a question,
yeah,
because you made a
please.
statement that I thought was like super unique, and it said you're talking about on the broad stroke. A lot of the entrepreneurs have the up down kind of
Yes.
process. That was your, like, let's call it the 80-20 principle. That's the
Yes.
80%.
Yes.
And you said one of the things they struggle with is that, and I don't want you to say it back in your words, but you said something about that what they're defining as success is from like a predetermined
Yes.
thing that's actually not true. Say that again, how you said that.
Yeah. So the reason that an entrepreneur isn't consistent is they've drawn the wrong conclusion to success based on a past observation. And this past observation, an example, and it is always from childhood.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works.
Always, 100% of the time. I've coached probably 200 people around this, and every single time we can locate what was the issue. And so, for example, if your parents were really successful, but they ignored you, then you may draw the conclusion, well, if I become successful, then I'm going to ignore my kids, and I don't want my kids to go through that. So on a subconscious level, you'll never say that consciously. You'll never say the reason I'm not consistent is
You won't even think it.
you won't even think it.
Yeah, it's like
but it will
a
prevent
conscious thought that you
Yes.
have.
Yeah. If you saw another common one, here's an interesting one is, and I've found this with a lot of people whose parents were immigrants.
Okay.
If you saw your parents work really, really, really hard, and they worked 3 jobs, they worked all the time, they barely got paid anything, they barely got acknowledged, then the easier your life gets, you actually will sabotage, because you feel bad. You feel like, am I disrespecting my parents? The back of your mind, am I disrespecting my parents because my life is easier? I should be working all the time too. And so it's a really interesting phenomenon that I've seen in every single entrepreneur that we've really dove deep on. If you saw your parents make a lot of money and then lose it, and then get ridiculed, you go from filet to ramen noodles, right? You may draw the conclusion that hey, if I really succeed, I'm just going to lose it, and I don't want to fall that hard. And so you'll find people that they'll hit 6 figures and they just can't get past it, or even less, right? And they just can't get past it no matter what they do. I always seem to remain right around here, and that's because of a past observation that is not accurate.
And again, the tricky part in here that I want to make sure everybody understands is, in those 3 examples you gave, it's not that the person, me, the viewer, whatever it is having this conversation with themselves saying, oh, I'm doing this because of this, or I'm doing this because of this. They never actually, in their brains, they're masking it of, well, the market was wrong. Well,
Right.
the timing was off. Well,
Right.
it's the wrong opportunity. It's the wrong product, whatever it is.
My partner's a jerk.
My partner, this, that, and the other. There's
Yes.
something that they're blaming it on. And what's actually happening is subconsciously, it's why they have had 5 partners go bad.
Yes.
In business.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, there's one common denominator between all 5 of them, right? And through that process, it's because subconsciously they're having this predetermined thing that's controlling them through the process, right?
Yep.
So this is kind of a 80-20, well, I'm going to put 80-20 rule there, maybe 90-10 or whatever, but 80-20, that 80% are having this inconsistent up and down, and it's because they have drawn a conclusion from a childhood and of what success means, and now they're living that out subconsciously. They're producing that outcome of level of success. And the other one is where entrepreneurs are just grinding, and it's because they're using the 18-hour coping day as a coping mechanism to not face the demon or whatever is there.
That is often the case. Not always, but often the case.
Yeah. Again, we're talking broad strokes for a show of an hour here of a high-level view on that point. And again, on that note, actually, if they do want to get more from you as we dive into all this stuff, where is the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so we have, I'm on all the different, social medias, as far as just connecting with me, Instagram.
Instagram's probably the main one. And is it just your name, Ray Higdon?
Yeah, Ray Higdon.
Right, just at Ray Higdon.
At Ray Higdon.
And they can follow you. Okay. Okay, so keep going down the path of consistency with entrepreneurs and all the ones that you've coached and how you've helped them. There's these 2 kind of buckets that you've identified in entrepreneurs. Now what happens?
Yeah, and so first is becoming aware, right? You have to understand that when I say a program, it is something that is actually, it's the driver. You're not the driver. it's the driver. You're on autopilot. So you're in the passenger seat, just careening off the cliff or going up the mountain. You're just you have no say in the matter. And I'll tell you, one of my first program that I realized was that it's actually I'll show you. Okay.
So I've said that before.
Yeah. And so what I'll show you the program looks like is it requires doubt. And so if someone doubted me, oh man, like literally Haterade is my Gatorade kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so if someone doubted me, I'd be like, oh yeah, you don't think I can do that? And I'll go show you. And so I would. And I've had all these different careers before I realized this, where I would do really, really well. And then I would get to a point, and that point was no one was doubting me anymore.
Yeah.
Which is what I needed. I needed that fuel.
That
People
drive.
now believed in me and stuff. And I'm like, oh. And so I would start over from a totally different career. And so I would do this, I would do this, I would do this. And that I can still feel that flare, but I'm aware of it. I'm aware of that. Before I was on autopilot. And I'll tell you how the first major one was, I was working at a telemarketing company, and my buddy was the IT guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I should learn computers, because I didn't learn computers, and I was like 19 years old. And he gets me this computer, and he's like, all right, right click. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know what he means. I don't know anything about computers. And he's like, dude, you can never do computers. The next 7 years, I worked my way up in the IT industry.
Yeah.
7 years of autopilot.
Not because you actually truly wanted to.
I didn't want to.
You were in the passenger seat.
Yes.
And the unique thing about the passenger seat is when you're in the passenger seat, you will convince yourself that you are in full control of what's actually taking place.
Absolutely.
Like, oh no, this is me. I'm doing this. Yeah. I'm driving this. I'm making this happen right now.
Yeah.
And it's really not.
Yeah. And that's more on the 20%, and the 80% they'll find a reason. Well, the comp plan isn't that good anyway.
Right.
But behind these programs is control, is mastery, is you really making a choice of what is it that you actually want. Uh-huh. And that's the place that you want to be. And what we really want is we want to feel significance. We want to feel like we're making a difference. We're making an impact. And that's where we all want to be. But to get there, you're going to have to go through these programs.
Yeah. You use two words in your defining it, again, still from a high level standpoint, is one is awareness.
Yes.
And the other is defiance.
Defiance. Yes.
And those are, the awareness one is like, I can process, say, oh, okay, I understand that. The defiance one is a little bit unique. I mean, from an outsider getting to know you, it's like, oh, that's a unique word for entrepreneurship and for understanding yourself, defiance. Explain how those two words fit into the buckets you have here.
So defiance is a muscle that you build.
Okay.
And so defiance is you proving that you are in control, not your addictions, not your emotional addictions.
Okay.
Right? And so the major one, just to go deep here, the major one in the last year was I realized that I had a program from childhood of I'm not good enough, I'm not a priority, I'm not worth fighting for. And so those were three things that were rattling in my brain at all times. And so I had a little bit of an argument with my wife, and I found myself thinking that. I became aware that I was thinking, oh, I'm not the priority again. And I made that awareness where before it just ran on autopilot, I would shut down, wouldn't talk to her. And so this was the first time in my life that I said, no, I don't want to think that. And so I became defiant to that program. And because I don't want to think that, because that's not true, but I had been proving it. I've been seeking this evidence all this time, and you find what you seek.
It's so crazy. Yeah, exactly.
And so I decided, you know what? I don't want to feel that way. And I felt like I lost my mind that day because my mind went crazy, and I fought it. I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And so there's been other areas of my life, meditation, cold showers. There's like a lot of different places where if I know something is for my betterment or my purpose or my joy, but I don't really want to do it, like I'm training myself to build that muscle to do it. Mm-hmm. And so this can start with just you being in control of not eating the cookie if that's, if you're wanting to lose weight or whatever. But what are areas of your life where you can become more defiant to that automatic program, to that thing that, if you're, before bed, it's so important to set your mind right because you're about to go into your subconscious mode. But a lot of people are tired. Well, be defiant in that moment and say, okay, what is it that I want to create? What is it that I actually want in my life before you go to bed, even though you're tired? Mm-hmm. And so the more of that muscle that you build, the more powerful you actually become. And you start to regain, the power away from these programs so that you're driving the car.
Yeah, that's the defiant side, which I think is, as you go through life, I'm not even going to say entrepreneurship, I'm going to say life. When you are defiant to the natural things that your body, your mind, emotionally is telling you that it wants, needs, has to have.
Yes.
I have to have this. I have, from a subconscious state, it's like I'm going to use the example you gave with your wife and the argument you had, and then it was like, well, you were subconsciously bringing back up not feeling important.
Yeah.
Well, that had nothing to do with your wife
right
at that moment, but you created or I should say this, subconscious mind had created this environment that you were going to live in of not feeling important because of what was happened at some of their point. And when you can be defiant to that,
yeah,
it is a new life that you can freaking live. And it is amazing how you gave a great example where it's like you can start taking back piece by piece parts of your life that until you do this, and I beg someone to go do this, because it's like, if you'll just be defiant about anything, pick it. I don't care what it is.
Right.
Well, normally I sit here.
It's a muscle.
Sit somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like just go sit somewhere else that day, right? Like well, I always sit here at my kitchen table at my family. Okay, go sit over there now. Just try, just do it. Yeah. And it's like, well, I've sat here for 9 years. Just be defiant on this thing.
Yeah.
And where it's like, the other one is the eating. I think eating's a big one.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna speak from personal experience. It was for me of like, I was eating and it's like, why am I eating right? And I just had like, okay, I'm overweight.
Right.
I don't feel good. Why am I eating right now?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a unique diet that I did.
Yeah.
It wasn't a unique process that I went through. It was just me being stubborn and saying, wait a second.
Yes.
No.
Amen.
No, I'm not going to eat this thing right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this on the show. I almost had like an FU moment.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, fuck that.
Yes.
I ain't. No.
Yes.
And it's like,
amen.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing was, it was no longer about the calories.
Yes.
It was no longer about the carbs. It was about me owning my life.
I love it.
And dude, it was revolutionary.
I love it.
To it. And I hope anybody on the show that listens to this, just go try it. Just find something small and just be defiant and watch how your body reacts to it when it happens. It's one of the most powerful things I think exist in that world.
And there's a lot of potential programs around food. So like, when I was a kid, I mean, I was in a abused home and I was always starving.
Yeah.
I remember one day I stole a frozen burrito out of the freezer and I set it on rocks outside and waited not long enough and ate that piece of crap.
Wow.
And so
you say stole,
I stole from,
it was your house.
You
know what I mean?
Kind of. I was more of an inmate than a.
That's true. Yeah.
And so I really do see it as stole. And so for me, one thing that I fought, because I've been 255 pounds, 230, 240, 210, 230. And so I've bounced all around. And, right now I'm probably like 195. So I've lost, a good amount of weight in the last couple of years. But for me, eating was freedom. Mm-hmm. That was my was my FU to my childhood.
Yeah, sure.
And, for some women, actually, if they've had a bad experience earlier in life, if they've had sexual abuse, then them losing weight can sometimes trigger, if I become more attractive, then bad things happen.
Yeah.
And so there's so many different programs around so many different things.
It's amazing how all that works. Before we go deeper into this, because I am just absolutely fascinated by this, because I think this is part of the gap that entrepreneurs ignore.
Yes.
They don't even know exists. Either they're simple to it, or they think, that's weird, hokey pokey stuff that I just have to go do this. And it's like, bro, I'm 20 years of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
If I could start with everything, I'd start over this right here
Yeah.
at 18 years old.
Yeah.
And learn this right here and watch it revolutionize
Yeah.
your life. Before we go deeper in it, because I want to go deeper in this with you, where did this come from for you? Like how did you find yourself into this world? Where did it come from?
Wow. There's been several pieces. I think it really started with after I lost it all.
Okay.
So I was a real estater in Florida. I left my job in 2005, a high paying salary to do real estate in Florida, 2005. What could go wrong?
Yeah, nothing.
And so
Name me one thing.
it went pretty good for a few years. And then when the market crashed, I got wiped out. I went into foreclosure. I got divorced. I'm sleeping on my buddy's couch, and life sucks.
Yeah, you became a country song.
Yeah, I did. And so, I was depressed. I was drinking heavily, and it, life just sucked. And I'm not proud of that because I was a dad, right? And so I had my sons, and I wasn't seeing them as much as I should have. That's one big regret, and I've told them, this. And interestingly enough, someone invited me to a 3-day event. They even covered my ticket for it. And in that event, I like to share as a landmark forum. And so,
are they still around?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, they're still around. And so I go to this event, and in my head, I'm like, okay, hopefully I'll learn how to make some money. What I got out of it was I had repair relationship with dad on a to-do list with no priority. And what happens with to-do list with no priority is you lose the chance.
Okay.
And so on day 2 of that event, I hadn't talked to my dad in 13 years. And I have every reason. I could, we don't need to share them, but 13 years I never talked to him. He had never met my sons. They were, I think, 9 and 10 at the time. And so I reach out to him and I say, hey, I'd like to have a relationship, with you, and I apologize for not reaching out sooner. And so he bought the plane tickets for me to go from Florida to Indiana. I was broke. I couldn't swing the tickets. He bought them. That was nice. And so I go up there, and hey, it's still not perfect, but I create something where there was nothing. I come back home, and it was 1 week later. Here I was, still dead broke, still foreclosure, still whatever, but there was something different. It's like, I really believe when you release resentment, anger, guilt, shame, new things open up. Like your energy is released, and I felt like my energy was released. I get invited to this home meeting, and it was a network marketing meeting, which I honestly had sworn off. I'd had some bad experiences. I didn't want to do it, but here I am. My credit's shot. No one's hiring. I have no money. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this thing work. And so I make it work. Now, I do go on to become the #1 incomer of that company. But here's an interesting part of that story. So I was, for a long time, I was the Superman to everyone. Like I'm nothing wrong here, and I would just show up as the Superman. I wasn't vulnerable with people. The first time I shared that story, I had been asked to come to go to Myrtle Beach and do a presentation. And something is just like, talk about your dad, like something just like this like feeling like I actually had earlier, today, right before here, is like, talk about your dad. And so I share that story that I just shared. When I'm done, the guy that invited me to that meeting and asked me to come present, he comes walking down the aisle, tears streaming down his face.
Yeah.
And I've never seen him cry or anything. I mean, he's bawling. And he's like, dude, I can't believe you just shared that story. He said, I haven't talked to my dad in 17 years, and tomorrow I fly out for his funeral.
Oh.
And I'm like,
oh shit.
Holy crap. And so my first reaction, which is just who I was back then, was blame myself, right? I could have told him a week ago. Like, why didn't I share this story earlier?
Yeah.
And so my first reaction back then was always blame myself. Why am I wrong? And then my next reaction was, man, I need to be more vulnerable. I need to be willing to share some of this. And so I've shared that story on a lot of stages, a lot of podcasts. I have hundreds of people that have messaged me and said, hey, because of that story, I repaired a relationship with mom, dad, sister, brother, son, daughter.
Yeah.
And 3 times, it happened to all be fathers, 3 times I've had someone message me and say, hey, I heard your story. I reconnected with my dad. Shortly thereafter, he passed away. And so it's like, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, this is what actually gave me my purpose. Of my purpose of helping people just get past, their resentment, their shame, their guilt, help them get past all this stuff, help them, live a better life, help them improve their life. And, I thought it would be me tactically training cool stuff, and this hashtag and this script and, but
copyright.
We do all that stuff, but it's really helping them get past their emotions, because without that, they're not going to hit their potential, and they're not going to feel joy or fulfillment. So what's the point?
Yeah. If we go back to that dad story for a second, and you're in landmark event, at that moment, you're broke, got nothing.
Yeah.
Depressed. You use the word depressed, drinking, etc. And through this kind of random, off the cuff 3-day event that you had no idea, was that you searched out and signed up for it and was excited to be there. You on day 2 end up calling your dad after 13 years. Now you made the statement that, hey, look, without going into all the details, you had every reason not to go call him. You had every reason not to reach out. You have every reason to be okay with 13 years and 20 years and 25 years, and could easily, let's say, justify it, right or wrong, but you could have did it. Making that call, did it provide you did it provide you something, even though that you were the one that said it was done wrong in the relationship? Was there something there that was created out of that moment of you going back to it and saying, hey, I want to have this relationship with you? Was something created there for you that you did not see coming, if you will?
I think it was, so in 2 things. One, I asked myself this. So number 1, I asked myself, if he died, would I feel okay with that? And I didn't. And so, someone listening, maybe there's, someone they're thinking of, and I think that's the best question.
It's a good question to ask.
If they died, would I be like, okay, no problem? Or would I be like, oh my God, I wish I would have?
And do you really mean, Because sometimes when you're
depends
pissed
on the
off,
level of abuse. It depends on what someone has gone through. Hatred isn't the opposite of love. It's complacency, right? And so if it's like wouldn't be that big a deal, then maybe it's not worth the effort. But the second thing is, I was addicted to my action.
Okay.
He could have said no, and I fully believe, now I can't go back in time, but I fully believe I actually would have been okay with that. But I was not okay with me not making the step.
Okay.
Because I have had people hear that and they made the step and they got rejected.
Yeah.
And they felt really bad because I have this better story or whatever, and it's like, no, you taking the action. And so for me, it was dropping that resentment. I had carried this around for so long, and to grow to the point where I could make that call.
Yeah.
And so, for me, that it just, I something I learned from Joe Dispenza, and it is, everything that you think is a chain of energy. And so literally everything that you think is a chain of energy. And if you can learn to release some of those chains that just aren't that important, then you actually gain a lot of power. And so, when you releasing resentment, anger, shame, guilt, of what people have done to you, wronged you, or whatever, amongst a lot of other things. Like when I learned that, I donated like a tractor trailer full of stuff that I just didn't need anymore. I sold all my watches. I just didn't really need any of that energy. It either is, it's on my purpose, or it brings me joy, or I don't want it. And that's how I manage energy.
Yeah. I would talk about the point you just mentioned there. Of you refer to it as purpose. You talk about those 2 things, purpose and joy.
Yeah.
Right. And I can sense that those are 2 kind of leading forces that you make a lot of decisions by. Of,
for sure.
Does this help me accomplish my purpose?
For sure.
Or does this bring me joy? I want to talk about purpose for a second, because I talked about a little bit with you in my office, but it seems like a lot of times entrepreneurs struggle with finding their actual purpose. And at the beginning, it seems like it's like, oh, I got to make money for my family. I got to do this. I got to do this.
Totally.
but it just seems like a lot of entrepreneurs want to do more, accomplish more, and have a higher purpose, a higher calling, or whatever it may be. How did you go about finding your purpose, as you mentioned a while ago?
Yeah. So it was really the feeling that I got of receiving those letters of people telling me they reconnected, with their whoever they were reconnecting with, and that feeling of seeing people have breakthroughs, and I got two phrases or quotes that I think will help, and that's number one, help the person you used to be.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And so I look at who did I used to be. I mean, I was, an addict. I was abused. I was a workaholic with no joy. Didn't matter how many millions I made at all. Didn't recognize and didn't celebrate it. I can help those people. I've had major self-doubt over the years, major self-worth issues over the years. I did early in life try to kill myself, and so there's a lot of categories of people that I can help. The second phrase, which really I think brings it in, is we have to be as brave as the people who need us.
Okay.
And what that means to me is we have to do the hard work, and the hard work isn't the speaking, the presenting, the podcasting, the whatever. The hard work is the inner work.
Yeah.
Right? As I solve my issues, I can help others solve their issues. And that's the work that people don't want to do because it's painful, it's scary, it's challenging, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And you're fighting against these lifelong programs and these lifelong, security systems, to use your term. You're fighting that, and that is hard stuff. It's easier to just, turn emotions off and just charge forward. I'll do another event and I'll go travel here, and that's actually easier, although from the outside you can get accolades that you can't accept anyway because of your self-worth issues. But on the outside that looks like hard work. That's the program. That's the program running you.
Yeah.
That's easy. It's easy to be on autopilot. It's like, where are we going today? Okie doke. It's hard to say, hey, why am I making these decisions? Why did I just have that big accomplishment, but I still don't feel any better about myself? And so what makes you feel good? And, for me, helping people with breakthroughs, helping them, get over their programs.
Yeah. The unique thing is that as you define your purpose, which I love the two questions you ask, right? Which are, who is it that I can help like me?
Help the person you used to be.
Your story is your story, and it's the stuff that you went through, and who better to help someone in that scenario than the old you, if you will, or the younger version of you, because that is you. You actually clearly understand where they're at, what they're going through, how they feel, and I love that side of it versus saying, a lot of times I think entrepreneurs, especially in the world that we live in with social media, I think sometimes they mean well, but because they don't want to deal with question number 2, which is the tie-in question that you brought up, because they don't want to deal with number 2, instead of actually helping them find that purpose, what they end up doing is creating an avatar of who their customer is. Yeah. And like, oh, I'm going to go help this person over here with this thing, and I'm going to go help this solve this problem with this tactic and how to do this, versus those two brilliant questions that you asked yourself right there. And because they don't want to deal with number 2, they end up creating another avatar, basically. Yeah. Do you see that happening a lot with entrepreneurs? Especially in the world that we live in today with social media.
For sure. And like you said, with social media, you're so heralded when you got the Lambo, the Bugatti, the whatever, and we think that that's going to make us feel better. It just, like you were saying earlier, I've spent a lot of time with people that have made a lot of money.
A lot more money than I have.
Same. And, like Tony Robbins says, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Yeah. And so like, what does bring you joy? It's probably not showing off all those things. It's probably not working your face off. It's probably something a little different and I'll give you a great example. So we did 2 seasons of a reality show called Play to Win. and we had people come from all over the world, and they competed for a job with us. And one of the ladies in Play to Win season 1 is a lady named Renee Adams. And Renee, she had never shared her story ever. She'd never done a video. She'd never publicly spoke. She'd never shared her story with anybody. But some magic of the show, she opened up and shared with us that, she'd had a pretty rough life. She had been abandoned. She had been sexually abused. She'd even been trafficked. And so she's had rough life. And, I told her, and I tell a lot of people this, I said, hey, if you're willing, right? If you're willing to be vulnerable and go out there, you could help a lot of people that would only hear your story. I can't talk about being trafficked. I wasn't trafficked. I wasn't sexually abused, right? So I don't feel I can, people may not listen to me around those topics, but they'll listen to her because she's been through it. And so, I kind of throw the challenge out. And within a month, she was speaking at abuse centers. Now, she'd never spoke, ever, had never shared her story ever. And then about a year later, she spoke at the 17th Annual International Conference Against Human Trafficking, ran out of I believe the University of Ohio, or something, and 19 countries tuned in to hear her share her story. Wow. So like 1 year, she's impacting tens of thousands of people with her story. Yeah. And she's still doing it today. Yeah. And so like that's bravery. And there's a great Brene Brown quote out there, and I'll probably mess it up a little bit, but it's, you either hustle outside of your story, you either authentically live inside your story, or you hustle outside of your story for your self-worth. And those are two very different things. And you'll find most people that most people look up to, they're hustling outside of that story. They're not living into who they really are and what they actually want to do.
I love it, man. Quickly, I want to cover your second word, awareness and defiance. Yeah. You hear the word awareness, it's becoming more of a buzzword, I call them.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
And I hate it when this happens because I think a lot of real truth is missed when certain words become a buzzword. And there's another buzzword right now going on called value. Like, I want to add value to someone. Right. It's like, I agree with the concept, but I think because it becomes a buzzword, it's taken out of context and it's not actually true value that you're adding. You're still manipulating the situation, if you will, through a topic. But authenticity is a buzzword right now. Like, be authentic. It's like, what does that freaking mean? Yeah. And if you don't even know who you are, how can you be authentic? If you don't even know who the real person that you are is, like, but awareness, kind of a buzzword going on right now. Yeah. And I don't want people to steal that from have the wrong definition from how you address awareness. Address awareness in how you do it with consistency with entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So becoming specifically aware of your decisions and your pattern. Okay. And it's like you said, if you have 5 bad business partners, then
there's a common denominator.
Wherever you go, there you are. And so becoming aware of that and challenging that. Why did I do this and this and this and this? Why did this? Why is every relationship bad? Why does every person rip me off? Or I'll tell you one I saw a few weeks ago is one of our clients. Well, she's actually not a client, but one of our students. I'll say she said, "Man, this person I was coaching, I've helped her so much, and she stabbed me in the back." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah, but you expected that." And she's like, "I'm like, you've had that happen a lot, haven't you? You just pour into them and then they end up stabbing you in the back." I'm like, you expected that. You anticipated that. Yeah. So what you need to do is you need to challenge, how will I feel if this happens, right? Mm-hmm. And not pretend to be so surprised. You're walking down this path, you're walking them down that path. And so you have the power to choose either don't pour into them, which probably doesn't feel that good, but you have a choice of your reaction. You can become aware of, oh, okay, I poured into them, I did my part, I wish them the best. Yeah. And I've had that. I've had clients that I helped that, weren't grateful or whatever. I just broke my addiction to that happening. Mm-hmm. If it happens, I love it, yay. But if it doesn't, that's okay. So awareness of your patterns, awareness of, why am I making decisions, and not just, getting, riled up, mm-hmm. getting riled up because mm-hmm. someone hit a trigger for you, but say, why is that a trigger? Yeah. And I'll tell you one quick story that helped me was my wife and I, we were at a charity auction, and one of our friends came over and says, "Hey, did you see the Belize trip?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh my God, it's amazing. It's 5 days on Belize. It's a private jet, a private yacht, a private chef, private island. It's only 5 couples." And ooh, and my wife's like, "Ooh," right? They're both just singing and stuff. And in my head, that sounded like hell on earth.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I'm just like, oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God, I hope we don't win this.
Please don't pick us.
Please, you got to buy it, right? Charity auction. And so on the way home, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with me?
Uh-huh.
See, that's awareness of why do I react that way? And that's what actually led me to dig into why do I have so much social anxiety? Because back then I had a lot of social anxiety. I would leave parties early. I would speak on stage, run to the hotel room. And I just had so much anxiety just around being around people. Why is that? And so I dug into that, and I had some help. I had a hypnotist friend of mine help me out with it. It actually came from in the 3rd grade where I had a guidance counselor betray me. I had shared my teacher knew something was wrong, had me start meeting with the guidance counselor, and I shared all of my different stories of abuse, and she thought they were cries for attention, so she told my parents, and that was a very bad day, and that was the day I stopped trusting anybody. And so if I'm locked in a 5-day thing on an island, with 5 couples, I can't escape. I have to talk. I have to open up. I have to let them in, and that was a real dangerous thing for me. And so the cool thing is I got over that program, and in February, we're going to Belize.
It's amazing because that's a great point I want you to bring up. A lot of times people listening right now, watching right now, would totally assess that looking at you, like, oh, Ray, well, you have all this stuff figured out. You're on the very, very top right now. And all this is now you're just teaching how it all works. But then you just gave an example right there of like, oh, no, like that just happened.
That was less than 2 years ago.
And now you're going to this trip now in Belize.
Yeah.
Is that because it's always a journey?
Absolutely.
Is it something that awareness is something that you always have to be asking yourself? You don't ever get to a point where the awareness is over. It's always happening.
I think you should always work on your awareness of, how am I feeling in this moment? Why? And so people they just let the little voice run in their head all day long, right? And it just says whatever it says. Well, you can actually rein that in. You can actually start to become aware of the little voice, the little voice that's saying, I don't have a little voice, right? And so, you can start to become aware, and by becoming more aware of emotions, I can tell you right now, in the last 5 weeks, I've gotten upset 3 times. And I'll give you one quick example. So I was preparing to go out to Vegas, and this company had hired me to keynote their event, a big network marketing company. And it was Thursday. I'm about to leave. I reach out to my team and I say, hey, we get the paper forms? No, they're not ready. Okay, we've known about this for months, right? PowerPoint no, it's not updated. Got it. No, I didn't get shipped. Got it. And so I just feel myself getting in a zone I don't like. Now in the past, without awareness, it just ruins the day. I'm, mean to my wife and, not nice to my kid because it just ruined my day because I have no awareness. And so with awareness, I'm like, wait a minute, I got to stop this. And so I have an exercise of, it's like a polarity thing, right? Where you express what you're actually afraid of, and then you go the opposite direction, okay? And so I'm like, okay, what is it that I'm afraid of in this moment? All right, paper forms won't get there, shipment won't get there, I'm gonna bomb on stage, they're gonna hate me, it's gonna suck, no sales at all. And so I rattle off all the crappy things you're not supposed to ever say. And then I'm like, okay, what is it that I actually want? And so I want the company to rehire me immediately. I want the number 1 income earner to hire me. I want them to create a leadership group of 5. I didn't actually say the number. I said I want a leadership group that I'll lead, that they'll hire me for. I want sales to be through the roof. And I want people to come up to me with tears in their eyes saying it was the best presentation they'd ever seen. Right? Tall orders.
It's a big order, yeah.
All 5 of them happened.
Yeah.
All 5. And it's because of awareness of not going down that rabbit hole of negativity, of noticing I stubbed my toe and then notice something else that's negative, because your emotions are propagated, right? And if you don't address those emotions that you don't want, even throughout the day, you get more of that stuff, and so people that are addicted to the news and they know that their side's right and that side's wrong, so they're walking around mad all the time. They're just getting more stuff to be mad about. And so become aware of, is this really serving you to be mad all the time? I don't think it is. And so let's chase what we actually want. Let's chase joy. Let's chase the things that light us up, the things that make us happy, changing lives, helping people. Like that's what lifts us up, and let's chase more of that.
Yeah. Two great words, man, awareness and defiance. And both of them are incredible if you apply them into your life, and then watching the outcome behind what takes place. Again, defiant to me is like a great one of just taking your life back, just little by little.
Becoming the master.
Taking your life back, of not allowing the subconscious to have you do these things and you don't even know why you're freaking doing them.
Right.
And it's like, as soon as you first you get to become aware of it,
Yeah.
that, wait a second, why am I doing this? And it's like, okay, I'm going to not do it, and I'm going to not do it right now. And it's like, and then you do it, and it's like, oh, this is this burst of like emotional energy that I have. And I actually look for things to be defiant on.
I do too.
I look for them because I know it's like it feeds me.
Yes.
Of like this, like, oh man, this control, not control of what other people are doing,
right?
But I control myself, and that's
Right.
all that I can do. Like, I
That's
can
right.
only be me. And defiance is one of the things that allows me to own my own world, my own space, my own life, right?
Yes.
Outside of it. I absolutely love it. Now through this, last question I want to get into, I know you have rank makers that you run, but you also put the software that kind of helps communities, groups, etc., actually process and do a lot of this stuff to certain degrees. What is the software that you kind of built that you're working with right now?
Yeah. So the quick backstory is we've ran a paid Facebook group for the last 4 years, and we have right around 12,000 people, pay $27 a month, and we help them be more consistent. We help them with mindset, and we help them with different things. And so the last, I would say, year and a half, 2 years, Facebook groups, they're just not what they used to be. You have a lack of transparency, a lack of control. There's censorship issues. There's mislabeling. It's no longer simple for the person that joins a group to understand what to actually do.
Yeah.
And so we were looking for a software solution. And long story short, we some people that we've worked with for many, many years, we all came together and we started this software and we wanted it to move our group off of Facebook, but then we realized how many other people struggle with this.
Yeah.
Whether it's someone that runs a sales team, someone that runs a membership. Like if you have a membership and people pay monthly for it, and it's on Facebook, like probably not the best, right? And so it allows them to brand it to themselves. So we have it white labeled, and people can have their entire brand, have their library, have their own quizzes, contests, challenges, etc. in it. And we've gamified it. We've made it really, really cool, and people love it. And it actually, we found from our testing and tracking, it improves retention greatly. So we're working with some different salespeople. We're working with different network marketing leaders that are moving their teams into it and branding it to their company or themselves. And so it's something that I think will help a lot of people be more consistent, help, if they have a team or a membership that they're wanting to help, we help them out. And we have it, it's pretty affordable, in this, current phase that we're in, and just looking to help other impactors make a big impact.
Yeah, it's something I already told you in our office. I'm like, dude, I want to see it. Like, I want to see that, man. Like, because I have my own community that we serve, and it's like, and I 100% agree with your diagnosis of Facebook groups and what they start off super cool, and they just have faded into just, I don't want to say worthless, but they're getting really, really close to not being able for you to be able to really do what you want inside of these different groups. So super interested in it. If they want more information about it, just DM you on Instagram.
Yeah, if you have a large team or a large membership, just shoot me a message, and my team and I will get with you. Instagram's fine.
Awesome, just off of Instagram. Let's bring up the money is question here with you today with Ray Higdon, and I believe this is going to be a unique answer, or maybe a unique definition behind it as well. But Ray Higdon here, obviously we have money is blank, and I started this because of a lot of what we're talking about today. Is like I just saw entrepreneurs that I was training and teaching going after the wrong thing. Like you're chasing a ghost.
Yep.
And no matter how, even if you can catch it,
it's not going to fix it.
It's not going to solve what you're actually looking for. And you actually become even more miserable because when you actually got it, you're like, okay, I got it. And then you realize it didn't do it. And your only solution is get more. I need more? Well, then I need more. And it's an endless, bottomless pit that you'll never get through inside of it. And so I brought this out because I'm like, dude, I want to bring awareness to money is not the answer.
Yeah.
But money can mean something to you. Money has to have more meaning than just another cars and toys or whatever it may be. Money has to be something different for you. So I'm gonna give this to you. You write your answer in right here, sign it right here, and then me and you can discuss what this is to Ray Higdon on the Sharpie there. And again, as you guys at home watching or listening, make sure you follow at Ray Higdon. It's just his first last name, at Ray Higdon. On Instagram or into socials, it's all the same, at Ray Higdon. And you can check out his website too, especially if you're interested in the rank makers, where they do a lot of the mindset training, network marketing, helping you grow throughout that as well. Make sure you follow him on Ray Higdon at his social media, and then check out his rankmasters.com. All right, Ray, you got your answer here?
I do.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Give me this right here.
There we go.
So Ray's answer is money is realized, is and? Realized and potential impact. Money is realized and potential impact. Again, first time we've ever had this answer on the wall. Now, unique here is I've had the word money is impact.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
But you said money is realized and potential impact. All right, let's dive into it.
Okay.
What does that mean when you say money is realized and potential impact?
Yeah. So there's the realized part. I'll tackle that first. So I remember I had a client come to one of my events, and we offered coaching. I offered personal coaching back then, and he bought it. And so my first call with him, I said, okay, cool. What are you planning on doing? He said, I'm going to do a webinar every week. And I'm like, okay, cool. What are you going to offer or sell? He goes, I'm not going to sell anything. It's going to be totally free. And I'm like, got it. I'm like, I'm just curious, if you would have came to my event and I didn't offer coaching, how would you have felt? Mm-hmm. And he said, I would have been bummed out, man. I wanted to work with you. I'm like, exactly. And so you don't have to shove it down anyone's throat, but you should be offering a way for someone who really wants help to get a more structured way to help them.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not, I didn't take money from you. You gave it to me because you wanted to improve your life, and this was a way that would help you, right? Mm-hmm. And because, and so realized impact means that you have the money that you have because somewhere, some way, someone was impacted. So even if you're, hedge fund kid, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, that money was made by building the railroads or, doing something to impact somebody. Now that you have that realized impact money, now it's potential. What will you do with it? Will you fund a foster home? Will you fund abuse centers? Will you fund water wells in Kenya? Will you fund your education so you get better at your craft so you can impact more people? And so it's realized and potential impact.
Yeah, I think there's a very, very good lesson on the first one of realized impact, because if you don't give people, whoever it is, followers, listeners, etc., somewhere to go, then they can go nowhere.
Or they go somewhere else.
And they'll eventually go somewhere else.
They're not served as well.
Right? Yeah. Inside of it. And so understanding the realized impact of what you have is extremely important, but it also tricky into subconscious mind of, but do I really offer any impact? Am I actually valuable? Like, would someone actually want my services or whatever it may be?
Yeah.
And then it goes back into the awareness and defiance kind of piece of it, because realized impact is super hard for, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs to process, because again, normally something happens as a kid that dictates how we view self-worth. You mentioned self-worth, value, validation into what you've actually accomplished so far. So I love that first one of realized impact that's there.
I'll give you a quick story that helped me. Was first time I ever offered coaching from stage. It was 2013. We had like 160 people in the room, I think, and I had 2 packages, and I had 2 to make the first look better. So the first one was I don't know, maybe $18,000 or something like that, and the second one was $50,000. Now I knew no one would buy the $50,000. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, just not going to happen. I was already uncomfortable offering the $18,000. But I'm going to do it. I made it a mission. I'm going to at least try to do it. And so I do it, and we have I think we had 22 people do the 18, and 3 people did the 50. And so I'm like, oh my God, like I was like, oh man. And so I'm like, do I like move in with them? Like $50,000, that's so much money. And so I really stressed about it, man. But 1 year later, all 3 renewed, 2 upgraded to it. And so I'm like, I didn't just sell them. That was my conclusion. It took me a year, but I'm like, oh, I didn't just have a great pitch, right? They actually got value. They got so much value, they wanted to do it again. And that really helped me, because that was me. That wasn't some other thing. It was me working with them one-on-one. And it was a really good breakthrough for me.
Yeah. No, it's super, super interesting as you mentioned that, because I'm going through my head, playing out in my head all the different things that I've done and similar stories to that. And it's amazing when you offer, again, this is a word that's overused, value. Yeah. But when you actually provide value, like true abiding value, money will always actually follow that. Yeah. It always will follow true value that's there. Now,
which means money is realized impact.
Yeah, realized impact into it. And the second piece was potential impact. And just hit on that one just for a second. Potential impact means, hey, once you have realized impact and you now have, because money follows value, which is realized impact. So now that you have money, the second phase of it is potential impact.
What will you do with it?
Yeah.
What is meaningful to you? I since 2013, I've invested over 6 figures every year into my education, because the best thing I can do for the world is me become better, and then I can better serve. And I can better, and I do that. I'm very careful with that word, because I don't like
which
how
word?
Serve.
Serve, okay.
I don't like it. This is not slavery. This is not servitude. I do what I do selfishly, because it makes me feel good. So every breakthrough that I have makes me feel good. I do what I do because it makes me feel good. And so when I say serve, I'm serving for my pleasure, my joy, my fulfillment. It just so happens that it helps somebody else. Yeah. And so I'm very clear on that, because I don't like I'm not, the Mother Teresa of whatever. Right. I'm doing it because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel significant. And most of my life, I didn't feel significant. Yeah. And so I do it to serve me just as much as it is to serve them.
I love it, man. I love it. Money is realized impact and potential impact. It makes me think of the 2, because you gave 2 answers, which makes me think of the 2 words that we started with, which was awareness and defiance. Yeah. 2 phenomenal questions to always be asking yourself. Awareness of what you have going on, and then defiance into what your subconscious is telling that you have to have, and you'll find that you actually don't. And so many breakthroughs with those 2 words right there. Ray, I love having you on the show, man. It's been a complete pleasure getting to know you and breaking through consistency inside of entrepreneurs. And if you can have those 2 words, you can find consistency throughout it. I know you guys help do that at your own private group, which is no longer a private Facebook group, because you also put a software behind it as well. So those that are watching, make sure you follow Ray as he can help you through entrepreneurship. You've helped me before the show and after the show inside of it. And I always, maybe it goes back to the awareness it's a little bit of what we talked about in the room, where like I no longer study the person. I just want to show up vulnerable, which is a word that I kept wanting to bring up on the show with you. Love it. Because that's such a powerful word.
That's bravery.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is bravery.
Dude, it's like another level, because at first you think bravery, you think like Braveheart, like showing up with the swords and the axes, and it's like, I'm brave because I'm going to fight you.
Right.
And you think bravery is about like production and getting to the end goal. And there's this other next level of like, man, bravery is me being completely open and vulnerable, and it's okay. Like whichever, it's kind of like the conversation you had with your dad. Like vulnerability is truly being able to say, this could go this way or this way, but I'm going to show up vulnerable to it. And that's all I can do. And I can control me being vulnerable.
Yep.
And the outcome is going to be the outcome. And dude, it is tough to live in a world of vulnerability, true open vulnerability. It's also a state that once you can get to it, it takes defiance, it takes awareness, it takes defiance to get to a state of vulnerability. But once you get there, it's like, and you have to keep yourself there. You don't arrive and it's over.
Right, I'm good.
You got to stay in that mode. But once you get there, it is a new level of life, entrepreneurship that you can live if in that state of vulnerability, man. Key word in life, vulnerability. You guys watching the show, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of the Money Is Show with Ray Higdon. We'll see you next time on the Money Is Show.